honestly control yourself. Like,
Right.
just control yourself to even if there is temptation there, because the other person might not have the same grown up the same religious background or something like that, to where they know not to try to mess around and whatnot. So that they might start, just trying, just because that's what they've done in previous relationships. But you have to be strong enough to be like, no, I want to wait. And if they're not okay with that, then that's not the person you're supposed to be with.
Mm. What's up, everybody, and thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Living Out Loud, where we're living out loud for the one who died for us. My name is LJ. I am your host today. And if you're new here, thank you so much for coming on. Yo, consider subscribing. We have conversations each and every week on God, faith, and living like Christ. Well, today I have two very dear friends of mine on today. I have Porter and Raine Lowry. They are a freaking phenomenal power couple. I mean, I love these guys so much. I mean, I've known Raine since high school? Was it freshman year?
Yeah.
It's been a minute. It's been a minute now. Also had the opportunity to film their wedding, which was such an honor. Without further ado, let's welcome Raine and Porter Raine. What's up, y'all?
Hey, what's going on, LJ?
You have been married for a couple months now, you know? So, like I mentioned before, like I filmed your wedding day and it was beautiful. I mean, the venue and all the decorations and everything. I mean, I loved it. I had a great time. What was going through your minds, during that day? Like, I'm about to be married.
I think for me, because we also planned our entire wedding like ourselves.
Yeah.
So there was a small part of me that was like, oh my gosh, I'm so over all these small details of planning a wedding.
Yeah.
But I think overall there was just like a piece of knowing that my search was over pretty much. Like I didn't have to have any worries. Like we took like I think almost a year just to kind of like officially date, because we had known each other and been friends a couple of years before that. And it was just nice being able to just like start our journey together of forever. And then really cool knowing that you have someone that you can just like learn all the ins and outs of, and they're not going to like judge you in any way. And there's like no negativity. It's just, unconditional love on like both ends.
Yeah. I kind of piggyback off that a little bit. For me, it was kind of like a finally, now we can be officially married.
Right.
Type thing, where it's like, all right, now we can actually build our life together, instead of, because like a lot of people make a big deal about getting engaged when that's just glorified dating. In my opinion, nothing changes. You just know that's the one that's going to be. So it's like it's still a waiting game, even for that. So it's just like she was saying, it's just really cool that you found your best friend and you can just literally build life together. And we have a lot of, even before we started dating, we went over, we actually made a list of what we wanted in the other person, like in our spouse. Wow. So we were going down that and we checked off everything on both sides. So, we knew from that. We have very similar beliefs and like paths of where we want to go in life. So we just knew it was match made in heaven.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, one thing that Raine said, she said the search was finally over. So, how has this relationship been different from any of the past relationships that you have had?
I guess for me, it was I had to before dating Porter, I had to kind of take time to really figure out myself and growing myself to be the best woman for like the man that I wanted. Because there were past relationships, their life just wasn't like purposeful. Like they didn't really have a vision for like where they wanted to go. and just like our values and our principles didn't really match. But because I was like, oh, like they're cute and they make me laugh, so we'll be able to like make this work. We can like force it together. But obviously those did not work.
Right.
And I just like decided to take time to actually learn like, okay, like I'm good with being like by myself. I know that I'm like comfortable with being alone, and I can actually like love myself for who I am and grow myself. And then when I was actually like ready to get into actual relationship, I knew I was not going into it just to casually date anymore. Like I was over that. I was done. I knew whatever I was going to invest my time in, it was going to be like, this person's going to know like I'm trying to make it to the end. Like this is not some temporary test of waters, you know, sampling, like none of that. And so when Porter and I actually started, like we weren't even like dating, but like when we actually started like initially talking in a sense, I told him up front what my expectations were, because I didn't want to waste my time, because I had spent most of my youth,
right.
I mean, I'm still young, but most of my other past experiences with wasting my time on men that weren't aligning with where I wanted to go in life. So yeah, I don't know if I answered your question completely, but it was just refreshing to be able to like find someone who we were on the same path, like we had the same vision and what we wanted to do in life matched. And then at the end of the day, like what we valued was the same as well. And we're both on the same page of like not wanting to just test something out and see how it goes. Like we were both like, if we're doing this to do it right and get married and like be together, you know. So
yeah, and Raine mentioned it earlier in the first question. Like we actually got to know each other as friends first. A lot of other relationships don't, I'm not going to say don't, but might not take that same route to where you, like you said, you're trying to force something to where it's just more than likely not going to mesh. You might be able to make it mesh, you know, force it enough, but like it's probably still not going to be easy, because as soon as we started, just like you said, talking, we already knew what we wanted in life. We knew what we wanted out of our spouse and everything like that. And we knew we needed to grow. Both, like each of us needed to grow into the person that the other person needed. So it's like we knew there was changes to be made. So it was really easy once we got on the same page with that. And the communication piece was the biggest, like communicating the expectations up front and not just assuming. You can get in trouble assuming anything. It's just like having the communication piece on the front end. It saves a lot of time on the back end, because let's just say hypothetically that she didn't want to do anything long term. Well, I was like, all right, cool, bye. Like, I'm not even going to initiate even further. Like, that's just how like I was in that stage in life. I was just like, I'm ready to be married. I don't want to have to deal with this whole dating life, especially during a pandemic. Like we actually met and like not met, we actually started dating during a pandemic and all that fun stuff. So I don't want to have to figure out a dating scene, if you will, during a pandemic. Like that's no fun. You wear a mask and you might not know what they look like until they take it off. And all right, well, there's a check. Well, let's go. You know what I mean? Like this is like, I'm good. So, but yeah. Hopefully that answered the question.
Like legit started dating. Like it was a month after we were quarantined. You can't leave your house. Like if you leave, the cops gonna get you. Like that's when we started dating. So when people were asked, they're like, "How did that even like work?" And I'm like, "Well, we knew each other before. We would like, you know, see each other at some of the different like meetings that we have with our business team, and then also we would end up going to like church together with like a small group of friends, or sometimes it would just be us. So it was all centered around the right stuff up front. So going into long term, we had that solid foundation.
Both of you were talking about, you know, just like finding somebody that you can share like the same path with, the same values with, and like a big part of that is knowing yourself and knowing who you are. Um, and I believe Raine touched on that too, like finding herself. And so yeah, I guess that's gonna be my next question. Like, um, how do you guys know, like, how do you guys find yourself like throughout the years, and like how did you know what type of person that you needed?
Um, I guess my side kind of came from trial and error.
Nice.
Because I think from past relationships, I tried to mold myself into what the other person liked, regardless of if
Yeah.
or not. I found myself
Mm,
like, oh, okay, like this person likes this, and I don't really do that stuff, but because I really, really like this person, I'll just, pretend like I like it too, and it'll be okay. Like it's not hurting me. I'm not like dying or anything, but you
mm,
don't realize that those like subtle um what what are those called? Those subtle compromises that don't align with like your own values and
right.
like your own principles end up hurting your self image long term. And it feels good at the moment because that person's there to like make you feel good in
Yeah.
whatever way to make you feel good. But then when it gets to a point where you're just like, dang, it's been a little bit, and this person isn't talking about taking the next step, or like, oh, we're in
Yeah.
that talking phase and not trying to become official and things like that, you
Mm,
start to realize like, oh wow, I've wasted or like spent this amount of time with this person trying to make this work and trying to make them like me and doing all this extra stuff that was outside of my character and who I really am. And now they don't want to take that next step that I initially wanted to take. So I just had to learn like, okay, I'm going to take this time to not talk to nobody. Like, I don't care
yeah.
if you're cute. I don't care if you talk nice. I don't care if you got your life together. I don't have my life together. So whoever is supposed to be with me will either wait or they'll come at the right time. And I just had to like trust in that.
Mm,
And I just took like a year or two just to kind of focus on, okay, like who is Raine? Like who does she want to be? Like who is the best version of herself?
mm,
And we're going to like being alone. Like we're gonna be okay with not
yeah.
having someone there, and just learning how to pick my own self up and be my own best healer and like my
Right.
own best friend. And then being like, okay, when I feel like I'm at a place where I can like take on not only the time aspect, but like the
Mm,
emotional aspect of having someone else in my life, then I decided to be more open to it. But yeah, I really just had to learn about myself, honestly. And
yeah.
it took time. And it's not, you're not gonna like it. Like I didn't like
Mm,
wanting to be alone, especially if you break up with someone right before that. That's like the loneliest time you're gonna feel. But it's just understanding like if you really don't want to go through that again, you really need to figure
yeah.
yourself out so that you can recognize the red flags early enough so that you're not compromising in the next relationship or like the next person that you express interest in. Yeah.
Well, I don't know how to follow up that.
Sorry.
Well, let's. It was kind of the trial and error piece as well for me. It was just seeing. I really had to take a step back and just kind of check myself, if you will. I had to evaluate at the time the relationships, friends, like in terms of like the association that I was around. What were their kind of underlining, I guess, principles or
Yeah.
goals of that group, and was it something that I wanted in the next 5 years or
Mm,
10 years or whatever long
right.
term?
Yeah.
So as soon as I made that kind of mental click, I was like, all right, well, I need to change association. I need to actually start diving into the word more, learning about is what a man's supposed to do in terms of a family role, like
Right.
be the head of the house,
Yeah.
stuff like that, being able to take care of the family and provide for them.
That's good.
And at the time, I definitely was not in a position, mindset, or anything along those lines to do
Mm,
that. So I really had to really start just reading books. Honestly, like I hated reading in middle school, high school, and college because it was stuff that I was told to read it, and so I didn't like that.
Right.
But it's just authority. It's just I don't know. I have a problem being told what to do. That's just me. But the fact that there were books that necessarily I didn't see any value in. Animal Farm, like cool. What is that? I know it's symbolism and stuff like that, but it wasn't going to help me. It wasn't going to help me find who I truly was or what path I needed to follow or go down. So I really started reading a lot of self-development books, just people skills books, so I can even know how to interact and know how to talk to the group that I was supposed to be around when I did find them type scenario. And then a lot of like relationship books. Like we probably read 4 or 5, maybe 6 relationship books before we even officially started dating.
Wow.
Because we wanted a firm foundation before having it potentially crumble later on, because we didn't have XYZ already established in terms of like the communication piece. I think that's where a lot of people really get into trouble in terms of not being able to work things out because they haven't established their communication styles, because that's one major thing too.
Oh yeah.
I forget which one. I'm looking the stack of books I have. Which one was it? The communication styles.
It's either Love and Respect or The 5 Love Languages.
I think it was Love and Respect was a really good book. So if people watching this, if you haven't read that as either dating or engaged or about to be married, definitely give that one a read. that one will solve a lot of potential underlying issues off rip, because it just kind of goes through how men, they always want respect, and women, they always want love. And then when the man doesn't want to give the woman love because she disrespects him, he has to give her love anyways. It's just that's just how it's supposed to be. And then vice versa, flip side, right? I can only speak from the man's perspective. But it was just reading a lot of books. Like, I know that's weird nowadays because most people don't like reading, but just knowing that there is good information out there, you just kind of have to know where to look to a degree. Like all those books that we were recommended by one of our best friends that were married 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
Yeah.
2 or 3 years ago. Like they recommended all the relationship books that we've read. So I'm like, wow, y'all have a thriving marriage, if you will. Nobody's marriage is perfect, but if you're gonna lend resources or recommend resources, I'm gonna go get it. Like that's just how I looked. That was just kind of, so it was a lot of reading, a lot of just like internal work. Yeah, because I have we'll say a prickly personality. Like what it say, kind of blunt to the point and very short. Strong. Yeah. Just type A, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
So kind of one of the communication styles, right? But yeah, just a lot of like interpersonal finding of what I actually wanted in life too. I think that matters a lot. Not trying to put on a facade that other people want to see. Figure out what you actually want, because then you actually be happy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's how it kind of came to.
And I don't know if you touched on it, but definitely having like the right influences around you. Like I know you talked about association, but like specifically have people who have like good relationships. Like don't surround yourself with friends that are like talking about their man behind their back and then thinking like, and then like, everything's like fine and dandy because they're going to give you like the same advice. Like I knew that he wasn't going to be around a bunch of friends that like, if I tried reaching out to him or called him, they'd be like, oh man, it's bro time. Like, forget about her. Da, 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 da. They're like, no, like that's your wife. Like at the end of the day, you're with her. So whatever she needs, go answer the phone, like go communicate. And it's also, I just knowing who to get the right advice from. Like I knew that for his parents, they were together, they got married, they've stayed married. But I didn't really have that example at home. And it's also, I didn't really have a line of relationships to look at where people did stay together, you know, and it was a lot of people just like breaking up, or just people like dating long term and not making the commitment to get married so that they have like a way out, or so like so on and so forth. So I knew I couldn't really go to them about how to stay in a relationship if they ain't never stayed in a relationship. And it was just like learning how to take people's like advice, especially when you get into like the, oh, you're engaged, getting married, everyone has advice and life tips, and opinions that they want to give regardless of what their track history looks like. So I had to learn how to like take things either like as a grain of salt, or just like read in between the lines, or take some advice and then leak some others on like the back burner. But yeah, it was a lot of just making sure that like I was around, like surrounding myself with the right example, so I knew what to follow, instead of following like the social norm of, oh, you can be like an independent woman and don't let a man like do all this stuff for you. But it's like there are certain roles, like regardless of how we like to look at it, there are certain roles that a man fulfills and certain roles that a woman fulfills. And I had to learn how to be able to play that role, but also like not lose my sense of self and individuality in the same way. So that's what reading kind of showed me as well. And that's why I really liked Love and Respect, because it showed me, oh, this is stuff that I need but never knew about. So I never knew I needed it in the first place. And I didn't know how to communicate that to my partners before. But now that I knew that that was something that was missing, that I actually needed to, you know, add to myself in the relationship, we could better work on that and make sure like both needs were being filled. In the 5 love languages, every person is different in a relationship. Like what you receive as caring and like a sign of someone loving you is very different for what someone else, like his main love language is like words of affirmation and like acts of service. I love gifts. You give me something and I will be absolutely happy. But like, I'll try to give him something. He's like, babe, I don't need anything. I don't want that. And I'm like, what? You don't want nothing?
When we took the test, gifts was last for me.
Yeah.
I could care less. Like,
it makes zero sense
thanks,
to me.
But whatever.
So it's like if I hadn't read that book though, I would have been trying to like show him like acts of like respect in the way that I thought it should have been showed based on what I liked. But it's different. Like you're two different individuals coming into one union, but you're still individuals. Like you can't lose your sense of self trying to become one with someone else. You're both supposed to be like equal partners. Yes, he still leads in different senses, but we have our own strengths and our own weaknesses, and we know how to play in both of those roles. So that's also very important.
Hey, yo, what's up, guys? It's LJ. I just wanted to take a brief intermission and just to remind you guys that if you're enjoying this conversation, please like this video. And please subscribe if you're new. You can subscribe here on YouTube or on the podcast. You can find me on Apple, Spotify, Google. I mean, wherever you find your podcast, I'm there. Thank you guys so much for all of the support that you have been giving me. Again, I am on the road to 1K followers. And that means 1K subscribers on YouTube and 1K 1,000 listeners on the podcast. And I can only do that with your help. So if you could help me, let's share this video with a friend. You can also even follow me on Instagram or follow me on TikTok. It's the same thing. It's going to be at its_LJAYY. I'm really active on there. I'm posting like reels. I'm posting TikToks. And the more that you can share, the more that you can like, the more that you can show your support. And like share a story, tag me. I'll share it. Let me know, if this has been impacting you. I would really appreciate it. Like, I am looking to build a community and help people learn to live boldly and louder for the things of Christ. So that's really all that I had to do. One last thing. I almost forgot this. One last thing. If you're listening on the podcast, could you please leave a 5-star review? I would really appreciate that. Just let the people know that this has been impactful to you, that it has been encouraging to you. I would really appreciate that. Guys, we have so much coming. I mean, I'm just excited for the guests that are going to come and the conversations that are to come. Like, you haven't seen anything yet. You just haven't seen anything yet. But I'm not going to keep you too long. Let's get back to the conversation. When it comes to like relationships, like any type of relationship, it's rarely about like you. It's all about, like the other person, when I was the last person I talked to, I was really intentional with what I did. And I realized I could be like so selfish. And I was like, man, am I really ready for a relationship for real? like for real.
Yeah.
So, like, what is one thing that each of you learned about yourselves while you were dating each other?
One thing I've learned while we're dating, not married, right? Dating.
Yeah, let's start with dating.
Okay. I kind of already touched on it earlier, but my communication, like, so I have what is called a choleric personality. So it's like short, sweet, short to the point type information. So like, I might not any like efficiency is kind of like a big thing in my head. So I might not say all the words to a thing. Like instead of saying, "Hey, can you hand me the remote?" I just like point at the remote and be like, "Remote." Before now, I've grown and changed. Like we're good now. But it's just like what can appear normal to you can appear very offensive to somebody else, or just come across as not your intention. Right. So being able to, and I know we're recommending a ton of books, but I Wired That Way, that was a huge game changer just in life for especially me, because it breaks down each of the 4 personality types, what the strengths are, what the weaknesses are, how to improve the weaknesses, how to interact with all the other 3 personality types, and even how to talk to them. So for me, it's like, well, you're just like a mix of everything. What was your main thing?
Mine was sanguine, so very like happy, bubbly, and then I was 20% of everything else. So
right. So
you never know what you're gonna get.
So she likes a lot of words. Like she likes being just like talkative. She recharges being around people. I'm the opposite. I recharge in solitude. So it's just really knowing, going back to the second question, just really knowing yourself.
Right.
To a really core concept level, and then being able to share that with somebody else instead of trying to be something that you're not, because that's exhausting. That is when you're trying to put on a face or a facade of any sort, and it's not natural. That is very, like I said, exhausting, because you're being two-faced basically. If you want. It doesn't have to be a bad or negative, but it's just not natural. So it's being able to be comfortable in how they like their tone of voice or the tone that they say stuff behind, because you could come across as very innocent in your head, but like again, they could take it as very offensive. So it's just being able to know that about yourself, so then you can build something long lasting together.
Something I learned about myself while we were dating. I think that this kind of goes back to when I took the time before to find myself. I also as I was growing myself, I had to reflect on past relationships and accept the fact that the other person wasn't all the problems, that I probably had some things that I need to work on. And with doing that, I was able to see more flaws that way, post the fact of why some things just did not work. And I realized a lot of it was just what I was exposed to when I was growing up, with my mom being a single mother and having to provide for me and my brother. And we have a stepdad now, but she still runs the house. And she had this tendency of listening, but not I guess hearing you, but not really listening, just kind of wait to prove you wrong and be like, no, whatever you just said was dumb. It was straight up not right. And this is why it ain't right. And I'm gonna tell you about yourself. So I like naturally adopted that same fact.
Yes.
And especially when especially when it comes to a relationship, like men need respect. But I never was able to see that in a relationship. I just thought like, if you're right, you're right, you're wrong, you're wrong. And most times you're wrong. So I'm gonna tell you why you're right. Well, I'm gonna tell you why I'm right. And like, that's just how it's gonna be.
Quickly too.
Yeah. But
not a chance to like correct yourself. Like, bam, you're wrong. I'm like, well, I wasn't done talking.
But it's like I had to grow and like see that like, oh dang, like I didn't really give that person a chance to like tell me like why they did something that way or like why they lived their life in a certain way. I just thought that no, that's not the way you're supposed to do something. This is how you do it. And if you're not going to do it that way, you're just wrong. So that's one of the things I learned about myself before dating. And then when we were dating, I just had to learn how to go about meshing with a different personality, like kind of going back to the book Wired That Way. I don't think I had ever dated someone who was as abrasive and blunt as he was. So it was a lot of growing and changing, but it also made me work on like communicating how I felt, because I realized even though I do talk a lot, sometimes if there was something bothering me or I had a tendency to like keep things bottled up because I thought, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Like, yeah, it stung a little bit, but whatever, I'm over it and let's keep it moving. But I didn't realize that like not addressing stuff like that would build up. And then he would do something that was so minor. Super duper minor. And I would lose my mind. It would be like Pompeii. Like I would just explode. And he'd be like, is all of this over this little thing? I'm like, nah, because you did this on Wednesday and then this on Tuesday and then a little bit of this on Thursday. And then it's like in the end,
fellas, you're gonna learn real quick. Women have a great recall memory system. We can forget about it 5 minutes later and keep it moving. Like you asked me, what did we talk about yesterday?
And he won't know. And I'm like, how you not remember? It was 3:03.
Right. So just be aware. Whatever comes out of your mouth is gonna get stuck.
Yeah.
Right up here.
Absolutely. I have all the receipts. But I had to like and that's like one thing where we were able to like find a better way to communicate. We started doing, I know this might sound like silly, but we just started like evaluating our week. So like Sunday nights, we would just be chilling, being like, hey, did I like, well, first you always want to address the positive. You never want to start negative because that just ruins the tone for everything.
That's good.
But we'd be like, oh, like, what were some things that you really liked about this week? Some things that I did that you want me to keep doing, things like that. And then we'd be like, oh, well, there's this one time, you know, you were like, book, or he'll just point and not say nothing and then look at me as if I'm crazy for not understanding his telepathy, whatever it is, telemind talking. And I'm just like,
telemind talking.
No, I need words. I need you to tell me what you need, and I need it to be done in a polite way, or you're gonna not get the bubbly Raine. You're gonna get whatever other 20% is in there. But yeah, it was a lot of just learning, like, okay, he's not I wouldn't say like wrong in a sense. There's just some stuff he does that's just natural to his personality. Like that's just how he is. And it's not something that I necessarily have to change. We can both work on adapting to it and finding a way to handle it better together, instead of me being like, nah, I don't like how that's done. You gotta, whatever you gotta do to fix that, you gotta do that. You know, it was more of like, okay, like, what am I doing? What are you doing? And how can we both attack it together, instead of being like, nah, that's you doing that, so that's your problem, so figure it out. Like that never works. At all.
So, you know, like,
that's funny. Sorry, I was thinking about what I said. You can cut that out if you want to.
He's like, nah, it's saved.
No, it's saved. It's all saved.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. Sorry.
I was gonna say though, like you guys did start off as friends. Like I think like for like a year before you started dating.
We met in 2018. Yeah, so 2 years.
Okay. And how did that Porter, I'll start with you, Porter. How did you know that Raine was, the one for you?
Well,
Like, I'm waiting.
I am waiting because it's a hilarious story how we started dating. So I want you to tell your perspective so I can tell mine and it can all make sense.
So with the business team that we do work with outside of our full-time jobs and everything, so we got to see each other a good amount. But I was never, because I was still working on me. So I wasn't like kind of like she was. I wasn't like looking. I wasn't on the prowl, right? That's not that kind of thing, right? It's business. So I think the fact that we were just able to naturally kind of be friends and get to know each other first and figure out what each person likes and what they don't like. Now I'm the guy. My personality is, if I find out you don't like something, I'm gonna make it a point to bring it up, send it to you. So like for whatever reason, she doesn't like log cabins, wood house, like Colorado mansions that are all like wood. So
just ugly. If you don't live in a ranch, don't live in
it's cozy though.
It's live in a ranch. It's too much wood, but that's beside the point. I don't like it.
So as soon as I found that out, I would on Instagram send her every mansion that I found that was all wood, just to like spite, just to like mess with it, right? So it kind of all started, if you will, started there, but it still wasn't in terms of like dating. Like I wasn't like doing this to like flirt. I was just doing that just to be annoying, I guess.
Yeah.
That's not how I saw it, but that's, I guess, how she did it.
It was how it was.
So just kind of some of that back and forth. And then we really started going to church a lot, as she mentioned earlier, together. Just knowing kind of each other's backstories in terms of like that piece of our life. I think that kind of took some walls down in terms of like trust and everything in a good way. Like it dropped some walls. It didn't build up walls. And then so the actual story is it was her birthday 2 years ago. 2.5.
Yeah, like 2.5 years.
2.5 years ago. So she knows I love food. Like I absolutely love food. If you're going to a new restaurant, you ask me to come, I'm going. I don't care what it is. I'm gonna try it. Yeah. If I don't like it, I won't get it again. That's how I am. Right? That's how my mind works. So I knew it was her birthday, and then she had posted something on Instagram, I think, saying how she had like this birthday cake. Her stepdad works at BONCHON, which is like Korean fried chicken. It's amazing. BONCHON. If you haven't had it, I recommend. If you get one thing out of this whole session, go to BONCHON. Change your life. But so she had some of that, and then her mom can cook too. She's brought some stuff to some of our meetings before that her mom's made. So I knew she could cook. Like she can throw down. So she was like, "Yeah, I got all this food." I'm like, "Oh, well, where's my plate?" Like kind of like joking, but like
joking, but not joking. Yeah.
I'm like, I know you got all this food. So and then she was like, "Oh, well, I can." How did you phrase it? It's like I can give you a plate if you answer a question, because at this point it was a couple weeks into lockdown when the pandemic started. Mm-hmm. So we stopped seeing. I mean, we would see each other
2-3 times a week.
Yeah, 2, 3, maybe 4 times a week. So we just got used to seeing each other. Again, not in looking for a relationship type, but just like friends, like saw each other. So we just started talking more on Instagram because there was legitimately nothing else to do at the time. Like you couldn't go anywhere. You had to have a pass if you're out past like 8 o'clock or something like that for work. And I'm just like, what is this? So we just started talking more. And at this point, we had just really kind of been talking about like this future stuff. Like, what do you want in life? So then that's when she hit me with I'll give you a plate if you answer a question. And I was like, Okay, like, what's the question? She goes, no, I want to see, we got to be on video, so I can see your reaction. I'm like,
Yeah.
it didn't hit me right then, but like my mind ponders stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that was on like a Wednesday or Thursday, and she wanted to actually ask the question on Friday. And I was like, I know what she's about to ask.
Yeah.
Do you like me? Like, I just know. And I started thinking about it. I'm like, well, I never really thought about it in terms of like that or just anything, because it was just like friendship. Like, that's just how it was. And then so she asked me, I told her that. I was like, I mean, I hadn't really thought about it in that way before. And then we proceeded to be on Instagram FaceTime for about like 9 hours.
Wow.
And we started at like 10 p.m. So it was just like,
yeah, literally like the sun
story.
came up and we were still on FaceTime.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the way we ended the FaceTime, it was crazy because and I'll get to telling my story in a second.
That was the full story.
It was not the full story because you were showing some signs that there was something there that I thought.
Some signs.
Look, okay, now I gotta tell you. Now we gotta take a break here and backtrack some more. So when we would have like some of our like weekly meetings when we would see each other, sometimes we would be like at like a house, like a friend's house, or like at you know how like Publix or stuff, they have like those seated areas where you can like sit and like do work. We would be there, and sometimes we were there. He would be like, well, it would be me, Maya, and Stacy. For anyone who has seen previous episodes of this show, they've been featured on it numerous times. Go back and watch them. But we would be sitting at a table getting work done, and he'd be like, he would look at me and be like, want any snacks? And I'm like, and they would say no, and I'm like, I would take some M&Ms. Now, mind you, I'm thinking the small, movie theater type dollar, and he comes back with like the shareable size of M&Ms.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh dang, I'm worth the shareable size of M&Ms. Okay.
No, because
look, he
if I was gonna
that.
buy them, I wanted to eat some too.
Okay. Anywho, that's not how I took that.
That's right.
And then sometimes, like 4 times out of the year, we have conferences that we go to, like leadership conferences, and they last the whole weekend. And there's this one conference in particular where I don't care where we were, we ended up being together every single time unintentionally. Like people would leave, I would still be there, and I would turn and he'd still be there. And I'm just like,
mind you, I don't recall this.
He doesn't recall it, but I promise you, I would ask Maya and Stacy, I'm like, am I crazy? And they're like, nah, every time we find you again, he's like right there. And I'm like, I gotta talk to somebody, because at that time, when we had that conference, it was a couple of years ago, I was talking to somebody else, and I'm like, I don't need him getting the wrong idea. There's nothing here. Like, that's where I was. Like, it was just no. Because like he said, he was focusing on himself. I was still, working with the wrong people pretty much. And I just didn't want the lines to be blurred, because I know that's happened before. People have gotten hurt, and I'm just not about dragging people along.
Yeah.
And I ended up talking to some of our friends. They're like, no, y'all are just like really close-knit friend group, because it would be me, Maya, Stacy, and Porter, pretty much whenever we met up. We were just close friends. So I guess it just ended up coincidentally being just us quite frequently that weekend. And I was just reading too much into it, but I was like, nah, there's something there. Even if it's like the size of a mustard seed, it's something there. Fast
she made
forward,
it something there.
Anywho, fast forwarding to pandemic. That was my premise. I'm like, he's been showing all these signs and stuff, so I'm gonna ask him if he likes me, and I'm gonna use food to do it.
She knew my weak spot.
I did. But I didn't expect him to say yes. I thought he was gonna be like, nah, that's dumb. I was just joking. When he said yes, I was like, ooh, now I got it.
Because she was she was in the mindset that there was something there. I just wanted the food.
Yeah.
That's all.
So, so we get on FaceTime. He tells me, no, I haven't thought about it. And I'm just like, haven't thought about it. Fine, then okay, bet. I was just checking, because whatever. And then we ended up staying on FaceTime for like 9 hours, and we were just like, we were comfortable enough with each other, just like tell each other our life stories, like all the skeletons in the closet. And I don't know why, it just naturally happened. And we were both just like, cool, like I respect you so much more now. Like, and we ended that call with like, I feel like we're like brother and sister pretty much. Like that was like the vibe. Like, you need anything, call me and I'm there, vice versa. And then throughout the weekend and kind of leading into that next week, we continued FaceTiming each other. Cause like you said, it's quarantine. Ain't nobody been in a quarantine before. Yeah. We don't know what else to do. Right. Both working from home. And then after that, you just log off and you're like, dang, I still can't leave. Right. Not go anywhere. So we would just like FaceTime to like pass the time and talk and stuff like that. But we would do that. It was literally like almost like an everyday basis. And we started developing some feelings. So like after like the third or fourth day, we're like, so those feelings we both said we didn't have like last week. So they're like kind of there now. Like, happened, but they're apparent. The seed is sown. And we just kept talking. And that's when we started talking about the future. We were like, look, if we're gonna do anything, I'm not in this to like just date. Like, I'm tired of just dating. Like, I want to be done in this dating era. Like, I want to be married. I want to be working on, our future. Like, this is what I want long term. Like, this, if you ain't about this, we're not doing anything right now.
Right.
And we were both on the same boat. So after that week went by I think that Sunday is when we were like, okay, like, let's just make sure this is cool to do. Like, cause like in our business team, we were in 2 different organizations, and typically you're not supposed to like mesh just because of differences in mentorship and styles of teaching and all that stuff. So we were like, let's just make sure we ain't messing nothing up for nobody, no projects get messed up, and everything, we got the green light. So literally within 2 weeks of me asking, we were officially dating.
Wow.
So that's the full story. I still think there was some stuff there. He just don't want to admit it. It was probably the M&Ms. So.
I was legit just trying to be nice, because I was going to go down and get some food, and I was just asking, I was going, do y'all want anything?
Do y'all want it?
But you were looking at Raine though when you.
But that's the answer. Right.
I don't remember.
Of course I don't remember. That's why I got all the receipts.
Couldn't tell you. Knowing me, I asked, y'all want anything?
It was just me.
And I said, if I'm going to get M&Ms, I'll get a big bag so I can have some too.
I still ended up taking them home, so that's why I thought it was just for me. So whatever.
So here we are.
I got you now, so it don't matter.
Right. We started dating in April.
April 27th. Receipt.
Wow. That good memory. Good memory. Wow. So you guys, y'all have a beautiful story. Literally, like y'all were like really good friends, and a lot of relationships, like they could start really fast, and then they go really physical really fast. But like what y'all have done, like y'all really built like a firm foundation on like friendship and like genuine love for each other, which is like really, really good. And I was talking with Stacy one time, and I was like thinking, this was like months before I asked you guys to come on. I was like, who should I ask? I was thinking of Raine and Porter, and she was like, yeah, you should, because like they have an awesome story, and while they were dating, they were abstinent. That was like, yo, that's good. So, like, what advice or encouragement would y'all give somebody who is, like seeking to date or are dating now and trying to live an abstinent lifestyle?
So I think it really, everything comes back to association. Like, you can't be hanging around people that be sleeping around all the time, because you're the sum of the 5 people that you hang out with. So if you got 5 friends that sleep around all the time, guy or girl, whatever, then that's going to wear off. You're going to think it's okay and cool and whatnot. But we also knew who we were in like Christ and everything, and through the Bible and the principles and everything. So we really wanted to make sure that this relationship and marriage was done properly, because we wanted the blessings that would come from that. And honestly, it was much more exciting waiting until the marriage day, because that just made the marriage day that much more better, that much more fun, because he had something to look forward to. I've seen too many relationships, like they might sleep around before getting married, and once they get married, it kind of fizzles out, and then they get divorced or whatever, right? They might not just have that spark because there was nothing to look forward to anymore in terms of like having that, we'll say together time, if you will, after they're married. Like they kind of check that box off, and then they look at the sheet and there's no more boxes to check. It's like, leave something. Leave something for once you're actually married, so it makes you more special. But I do think if you surround yourself with strong Christian, and especially strong Christian married couples, it makes it a lot easier, because they set the precedence that we didn't sleep around before getting married either. And this is why we have a thriving, it might not be the only reason, but it's one of the main reasons why we have a thriving marriage now, is because honestly, they were just patient. That teaches patience. And I think a lot of people nowadays just don't have the patience for anything. They don't want to delay, if you will, or put something on the back burner until timing's right. They want it now. So it's like just being able to honestly control yourself, like just control yourself to even if there is temptation there, because the other person might not have the same religious background or something like that, to where they know not to try to mess around and whatnot. So they might start, just trying, just because that's what they've done in previous relationships. But you have to be strong enough to be like, no, I want to wait. And if they're not okay with that, then that's not the person you're supposed to be with. Again, blunt, prickly, but that's just how it's supposed to be, in my opinion.
A really good book that we both read, like literally like when we immediately started dating, is a book called Swipe Right, that actually goes into like why you're supposed to wait, because I like understood the essence, like, oh yeah, it's special, like wait for your marriage night, yada yada. Well, not yada yada, but like that's what the rest of life teaches it. Like that's how like society treats it. Like, oh yeah, you could wait or whatever, but like, and then it's crazy, like the like negativity that can like seep in from like your association, because people are like, oh, like what if you wait and then it's not as great as you expected? And it's like, well, you have to remember, like the essence of why you're getting married is to have someone who's openly willing to like learn you inside and out. Like you're like, nothing is done right the first time. That's why everything pretty much is always like not done right, or like fails the first time it's ever done, because you don't know what you're doing. But you have someone who's actually there to like learn what you like, learn what you don't like, and they've made the commitment to you then to be able to like work through that so it can be the best version that it's supposed to be, instead of, like he said, testing out the waters and then you have nothing left to work towards, or you test out the waters with like the wrong person and they're not willing to learn what you like, and then you're just like, dang, is there something wrong with me, like am I doing something wrong and stuff like that. So there's a lot of different benefits to waiting. I think the biggest thing it gave us was just time to really like make sure we were right for each other first, instead of making that mistake and being like, oh, this is like the best thing ever. Of course we can make it work. And then you get married and you're like, oh my gosh, I hate like all of this. And then, you know, you already checked that box and you're already used to it, you're just like, well, dang, like this is not what I thought it was supposed to be, but it's because there was no foundation laid before you actually took that next step into committing to forever. So just be able to be comfortable and like learning, like, do I like being around this person like all the time first before you make that commitment, and you have to be around that person like all the time because you're one now. And then you're just like, oh my gosh, like, ooh, I should have done some more thinking before just like taking action. You know what I'm saying? So that book is great. Because his brother, his parents, they grew up in the church. I didn't. Like, my church experience when I was younger was not the greatest. It was very much so, it's Sunday, put on a nice dress, I'm taking you to church. I'm like, we haven't gone to church at all this year. Why is this one time of me going to be anything better? So it was like a lot of that, and just like not really understanding like the essence of the word. And that's like why I had to work on myself, and actually like learn all this stuff so I could not make previous mistakes again. So, but yeah, waiting, even though it may seem like, gosh, like I'll have to wait like that long, but when you do all the stuff beforehand, like working on yourself, knowing what you want long term, being able to know what you want in a partner. Like, I know the list sounds like silly, but it's not a list where you're supposed to use it as like you're meeting someone on the first date. You're like, are they tall? Nope. All right, sorry, sir, but you don't mess up one thing on the list. You know, it's like a guideline, so you know that you value someone who has good leadership skills. You value someone who's not going to have an ego. You value having someone who's going to be willing to listen to you and opening to like about learning about communication. You know, you value someone that wants to have a family long term. Like, though you're writing down a list of values that you have, not a strict guideline like this is what my man is supposed to come packaged like. And if it's not like that, then I don't want them.
And then, to addition to the list of what you want in your spouse, we were told to also write down the characteristics of what if that person had all these characteristics, would want in you. And then you would write down those. So it gave you kind of a baseline, if you will, of what you could even focus on. Because I think a lot of people don't even know where to start in terms of like a self-development journey, or just any kind of improvement anywhere. So that really gives you a baseline of, well, if I want all these great characteristics in my spouse, they probably need some stuff in return. What might that stuff be? And then you can go read about it, learn about it, like go ask questions of people that have that, whatever that is. And then you can really build yourself up that way too. But yeah, you can keep going.
I forgot where I'm going. So yeah, be open to making a list, and just understand that when you meet someone, you might be meeting them and they're like chapter 5, like you're never done growing. So just because someone's not great at one of the aspects on the list doesn't mean they'll never not reach it. You just have to be open to growing with them.
I always say, like, I'm not looking for perfection, but I'm looking for like the one that's worth fighting for, you know, because none of us are perfect. So all of that, y'all came with wisdom. Y'all came with some books. Look, I got a whole list of books now, y'all. I'm gonna. So, is there anything else you guys wanted to mention or talk about on today?
Just remember that a relationship, a lot of things that we're taught is that it's 50-50, like you should be willing to give some and they need to be willing to give some, and if they ain't giving it, you need to leave them. But when it comes to finding someone, when it comes to love in general, you're supposed to do things unconditionally, whether that's your partner
So
or your family or your friends. Like everyone has baggage, everyone has issues, and everyone has to grow themselves. So you have no clue what that other person's working on, and you may be expecting them to do something that they're just not that great at doing just yet.
Right.
And love is supposed to be 100%, 0%. You know, like you still need to be doing all the right things, regardless of what the other person is doing, and vice versa, because you're supposed to be there to build each other up. You know, you're not supposed to be tearing each other down or expecting something and being like, well, if I don't get this, I'm not giving this. And then both of y'all are butthurt and you don't even understand why, but it's because you're not willing to just give and trusting that whatever you give will like be returned to you later on. So.
And to kind of build off of that, there's a part in The Greatest Miracle in the World where they're talking about love is an unselfish act. Yeah. When you expect something back in return, or you do it for an intentional response, that's selfish. So that's not actually love. That's just manipulation. So it's just like, yeah. So the love is 100, 0. So even when it's to you, when it might not seem ideal to give that love to somebody, you still got to anyways. You can talk about it later. you can hash out what you need to hash out later in terms of open communication, but like in the moment, you still just have to show love, no matter what's going on, because some people might be looking to you for an example, and if you show them a poor example, then they might not go after what they were meant to go after.
And I will say, like, even though we use the word love, it doesn't mean it's going to feel great at the time. A lot of the time, it's going to feel like you are sacrificing or it just sucks overall. But like, if you understand what you're actually both moving towards long term, it's just like, this might be just a speed bump in the road, but it's not anything that's gonna like kill us. We're not gonna die over this. Like, we just need to be willing to work through it. So it's not gonna be pretty is what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
And for the I call them the weekly relationship reviews, that has helped us a lot, especially early on, to where, again, we were figuring out each other's personalities. We were figuring out what irked the other person, because we found addressing it in the moment of when, let's just say, I don't know, she said something that kind of ticked me off or rubbed me wrong or whatever. If I try to address it in the moment, I'm already mad. So it's not going to come across as the way I want it to come across. So we just keep notes in our phone of just kind of, if something happened, good or bad, right? Good or bad, we just make a note of it. So then we actually can remember, we'll say talking points, if you will, that we do it on, like she said, Sunday night. So whenever we have that little conversation, it's open. We know we're going to have it. So it's not like hey, we need to talk. It's like, no, like we have a scheduled time to where we actually talk about stuff.
That is so good.
I think that's helped us out probably the most. Out of anything.
I was gonna say also, because I know multiple different types of people in different phases of life are gonna watch this. If you're married, do not stop doing the stuff that built your foundation once you get married. Like, we actually had to like talk about this recently, where we were just like, why do things seem off? And we had done stuff to build the foundation and things were going great. And we just started realizing that maybe things had started going off track and we didn't understand why, but we weren't talking like we used to actually make things good. You know, it's like, oh, we're good now. It's like we learned the ropes things should be great from here. And then once things aren't great, we're like, well, God, dog, like I thought we worked on this. And it's kind of like when you think about like a house or like a car, there's going to be maintenance, there's going to be repairs. And it's the same thing with your relationship. You're going to have to go back to the basics sometimes if you have to get back on track and back to where you need to go. Because a lot of times you think you've mastered one thing and that's it, but sometimes you got to reopen the book and brush up on some things. So yeah, if you're married, don't stop doing the stuff that got you to the good marriage.
And don't get lazy. Don't get lazy with it. That's the underlying, again, my way of saying that. Yeah. But don't get lazy with it. And just because you think you've mastered something doesn't mean you actually mastered it. You mastered it in a time frame of, you fixed it in the time frame of what you expected to fix it in. Yeah. But if you take your focus off of something, it's going to reappear. Like if you're focusing on communication and then you stop communicating, it's going to reappear at some point down the road, like it did with us. We're just like, hey, what? Like,
we were just,
what's up? Like, yeah, I'm like, what's up? Something is just not how it used to be or how it's supposed to be. So we're like, when was the last time we had a relationship review? We're like,
a couple of months.
It's been a minute. I'm like, well, why did we stop? We just got, like, I know life happens. People get busy. It's not intentional that you get lazy about something. But when you take your focus off something, that's when it's going to creep up and cause issues. It could be major, it could be minor, but it's going to cause some kind of something. So as long as you catch it early enough, then you can fix it again. As long as you don't let stuff fester, that's probably the biggest key. Yeah. Do not let stuff fester. Because as she mentioned earlier, when we didn't talk about stuff right away, and then that one thing set her off, and to me, it was extremely minor. Right, like it was an extremely little minor thing, but it was build up. Most people, we'll go this route. Most people don't have affairs off rip. They don't go to the grocery store and be like, "Oh, hey, you like, let's go to a hotel." Like that's not how things happen. Just little things throughout a period of time that build up to that point. They might get too comfortable with somebody at work. They might, I don't know, have a new friend group that's kind of what they do, or legit whatever. There's so many underlying potentials that can happen to, but it's just that build up. Don't let that build up happen.
Yeah. I also thought of 2 more points. So
I'm here for it.
But just to kind of piggyback off of that, always remember there's always an enemy working against you that doesn't matter. So like you said, affairs just don't just appear. A lot of it starts mentally. Like if you let things fester, excuse me, you can start looking at the person differently. And because you start doing that, especially if you guys aren't communicating, you can be like, well, dang, he doesn't even see these changes. Like he's not like trying to like talk about anything. And you can just let all these negative thoughts start building up and just like running rampant. And then that's when after those thoughts just kind of stay there, it starts kind of changing your actions, but you won't notice until it's too late. Another resource, it's not a book, but if you know like Mike Todd, he runs Transformation Church. Crazy Your Faith series is absolutely amazing and talks about like faith in so many different aspects, especially in relationships. But he talks about like sowing seed pretty much, and how you can sow seed in one area, but like if you haven't sowed seed in your marriage, like don't wonder why not producing anything. So that kind of leads me into my next point of don't stop dating either. Like just because you're married doesn't mean you made it. You still need to make like intimate time for each other. Cause that's like one thing for us. We both work from home. So we're around each other a lot, but it's not quality time. Like we're both in the same environment, we're just not giving each other undivided attention. And for the longest time we thought like, oh, we're around each other, we're spending time together in a sense. But no, there would just be times where I'm like, bro, when was the last time we went out I'm sick of this apartment. Like I know it's pandemic and whatever, but like we need to do something together. Like no phones, don't have nobody calling you, no answering texts, no work, just us together having fun, building our relationship. And we've started, and it's weird if you have a busy schedule, don't feel weird or off about scheduling like your quality time. Because a lot of people will think, oh, it should just naturally happen. Nothing naturally happens.
If you expect that, it won't happen.
Yeah. So don't be afraid to like block off a Friday night and be like, I don't care if the world is ending and it's the rapture. We're going to movies and I am dating. Well, yeah, hopefully we're going up. I won't say that. Right. I'm going. I'm hopping on in the back seat and we're going straight up there. But I'm just saying, like, if anything else comes up, unless someone's like dying, like don't move it for anything. Don't be like, oh, I have to work on this like work project, so like let's reschedule. Like that's not important. Like you can find a new job. You don't necessarily want to have to find a new spouse because that's a lot of undoing. And you're not supposed to do that unless something dire, adultery happens. But if you don't let it get to that point, you should be able to work through everything. So keep dating each other. Know there's always a force working against you, and don't stop doing the stuff that got you to where you are.
Y'all are teaching me today. I mean, all of this.
You legit just got 3.5 years worth of knowledge input out in this one segment, however long this is actually going to be. But
it's great though. I'm here for all of it. I mean, I loved it, and like I'm so proud of y'all. Like, just seeing the growth. Porter, I've known you for probably just a year now, but like you've always been just an awesome, amazing, cool dude. Like you're just so laid back and chill, and you were always cool. Raine, I've known you since freshman year, and just seeing your growth. I am so proud of you, and I'm so happy for you, and I just know God's got great plans for y'all, and the investments and the seeds that you mentioned that you're sowing now, it's going to be a great harvest for the years to come. So I'm so excited for what God's going to do for y'all. I really am.
We are too.
Yeah. And you've grown. Talk about like from freshman year, you have your own photography business, you have this show. Like it just shows like when you put God first, things align, like if stuff starts falling off track or you get lost, it's because, like I said, there's always something working against you. So you unintentionally let him like seep in, and it's not going to be something that you notice major. Like you can notice if a thief is in your house because they've broken in, like that's something you'll notice. But like with the enemy, it's something subtle. Mental. Yeah, you could like be looking at yourself and be like, gosh, you don't look great today. Boom. That's something negative. And then that starts festering in your self-image. Or like we said about like relationship stuff, it's just you gotta gird yourself up. And don't stop sowing seeds, because what you reap you sow, and that can either be positive or negative. So make sure it's always positive. And keep God first.
Amen. So if anybody wanted to connect with you guys, how could they do that?
I would say Instagram or Facebook, Porter Lowry, Raine Lowry. My Instagram is _rainwater_. What's your Instagram? Is this Porter Lowry?
I think it's just Porter Lowry. There might be an underscore in there. I can find out.
It might be underscore.
Logged in so long, but like I've used it. I just haven't actually had a login.
Right. Okay. And before we end on today, guys, Porter, could you end us with a closing prayer?
Certainly. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for being able to let us fellowship here, being able to pour out the words that we know we got from you. We didn't come up with any of that information. We let your voice be heard tonight. And thank you for this time that we could actually fellowship, and hopefully something from this message tonight impacts somebody so that they can turn around and live their life in your glory and give you all the honor and glory that you deserve. I wish broken marriages healed. I hope if somebody was thinking about ending a relationship, that they turn around and try to fix it instead of just throwing it away. But Lord, we give you all the honor and glory. In your son's name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you again, guys, so much for this. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
Oh, it was definitely fun.